Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report, coming to you in a way that only we can do. Get ready. Yeah. I'm Stacey.
Max, I'm going to show you an image, and please don't go berserk, okay? Because this guy is scary looking. Ah! Exclusive. Charlie Munger compares trading Bitcoin to trading freshly harvested baby brains, which is quite interesting because he, to me, looks like a freshly harvested baby brain.
Eating freshly harvested baby brains, a quote from Charles Munger, does not dissuade anyone from considering him to be part of the Illuminati, does it? Apparently, this is what they do. He and Warren are freshly harvesting baby brains all the time while underperforming the index funds in the S&P for 10 years straight. These guys are losing people money as compared to an S&P index. They get bailed out in 2008 for their fraud. They support Wells Fargo, a terrorist organization in America that's actually performing financial terrorism with the blessings of Warren Buffett and Charles Munger. And he has the temerity to criticize Bitcoin the same way he missed Apple for the first let's say hundreds of thousands of percentage points. He missed Amazon. He's at their annual meeting saying, oh, we missed Amazon because we have a sexual relationship with Walmart people and we couldn't possibly invest in Amazon because we're incestuous little from frickin' Nebraska and Omaha nobody heard about. And he's basically spewing. I mean, the list goes on and on. The guy's a menace.
Okay, well, let's talk some sort of like technical logistics of why I think they're talking about this, why they keep on dissing Bitcoin. Part of it is because they keep on being asked about it, okay? And I think this is crucial to understanding why they keep on coming up with, remember Warren Buffett recently in the past year called it rat poison. He called Bitcoin rat poison. Here in this interview with Yahoo, Charlie Munger calls it trading freshly harvested baby brains. At their annual event this last weekend, Charlie Munger compares cryptocurrencies to turds and dementia. Warren Buffett does not like cryptocurrencies, a position he reiterated at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. His grievances against Bitcoin and its ilk are many. It's a non-productive asset, has no intrinsic value, it's a breeding ground for charlatans who take opportunities to rip off people trying to get rich and something they don't really understand. He said that cryptocurrencies will come to a bad ending. Warren Buffett, 87. In terms of Charlie Munger, who's 94, I like cryptocurrencies a lot less than you do, he said to Warren Buffett. To me, it's just dementia. It's like somebody else is trading turds and you decided you can't be left out. I think because Charlie Munger's 94, Warren Buffett's 87, they're both getting ready to, shed their mortal coil and exit Berkshire Hathaway. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin is a response to their legacy. They're witnessing what they caused. This is a response to the financial system they created. They had wished this had happened after they were gone, and these are just old men railing against the youth who have basically given them the middle finger for their financial system that they left behind.
Right. This new generation has sussed out that the financial markets have been rigged horribly by the likes of the crony capitalists over there at Berkshire Hathaway and their friends at the central banks. And even the St. Louis Central Bank head recently said that this new generation is embracing crypto as a reaction to the 2008 crisis.
So I think that's important to understand that these two old men, they are like the dominant figures in the financial world that Bitcoin is a response to. So it makes sense that they've been called out brutally so without any, Bitcoin itself doesn't need to call them turds with dementia.
Well, let me explain that. Berkshire Hathaway is anti-American and anti-democratic, and you can look at that quite plainly by understanding the stock price of Berkshire Hathaway, which never splits. So it's trading, I think, near $300,000 a share. So the message from Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett to Americans is, unless you've got $300,000 to buy one share of Berkshire Hathaway, you're a pleb, you're a peasant, they are the neo-feudal lords that are bilking the system, milking the system, abusing the system, and aggregating wealth as rentier coupon clippers and nickel and dimers. They add nothing to the economy. Warren Buffett has not had an original idea in his entire life. He simply uses insurance premiums to take huge stakes in companies and then uses his political influence to manage a return that's underperforming the S&P.
Well, they had a $1.1 billion write-off in a market that has had, last year, the first year of Trump, has been like the biggest returns ever in S&P 500 history and the Dow Jones history and all the market history, and yet they somehow had to write down a large percentage.
Right, it's like getting, this famous porn star now, Crushy Williamson, or what's her name?
Stormy
Daniels, to teach Sunday school. It's like getting Warren Buffett to talk about technology. He has said for years he knows nothing about technology. He knows about a road system. He knows about, trains, and he knows about Wrigley gum and chewing gum. He's been trying to buy Hershey chocolate bars for this entire career because he likes chocolate, he likes candy, and that's the stuff he understands. It's got to be really simple. Like him and Charlie eat baby food because they're too old to eat regular food. So he buys baby food, right? And that's his mentality. That's the level of his understanding. Technology, he's an idiot. He's a dunce. He doesn't understand it. He missed all the technology stocks. I mean, look, Bill Gates, they were on a train ride for days and tried to get Warren to buy Microsoft stock. He bought one share as a novelty and missed the entire move in Microsoft stock. He's a complete dunderhead when it comes to the technology sector, which, by the way, is the main driver of the American economy, not old world railway stocks and everything Warren Buffett represents. The guy's a menace.
But again, he's also a huge holder of Wells Fargo. And so that sentence from him is remarkable in light of what has happened with Wells Fargo. Remember, I'll remind you, it's a breeding ground for charlatans, he says of Bitcoin, who take opportunities to rip off people trying to get rich in something they don't really understand. Here is one of the largest players, Warren Buffett, in all his holdings in the whole CDO disaster and outright scam frauds against the American people and pension holders in 2007, 2008, and 2009. Wells Fargo created millions of accounts for their clients, their customers, unbeknownst to their customers. They didn't know that they had these accounts that Wells Fargo opened in order to basically bump their own, a charlatan-like act, to bump their own figures.
Right.
So, yeah.
He says a breeding ground for charlatan. And that should be applied to Wells Fargo.
And all the banks, yes. But
yeah.
Wells Fargo in particular, he's a big owner of that.
Right. He's their biggest shareholder. That's a breeding ground for charlatans. They illegally open accounts for people. They stole money from people. He never said anything about it. He has no comment about it. He and Charlie Munger have no comment about Wells Fargo.
Never. They didn't have any comment about it. Actually, the only thing they said is that regulators should go easy on them now because they've already paid enough in fines.
Right. These are proven charlatans.
With all the money they stole.
They stole a lot of money. They got to steal like 10 cents to keep 90 cents of every dollar they stole. That's their business model, right? Yeah. And so Warren Buffett's like, oh, crypto charlatans. Wells Fargo, that's the charlatans we like. Those are the charlatans we approve of. Those people steal money for us. We miss crypto because we're overrated as stock pickers.
Well, okay, let's also point out that because of the financial system. Remember, I said that Bitcoin was birthed, the Genesis block happened in 2009. The white paper was published in 2008. This is at the peak of the financial crisis, the disaster that the likes of Warren Buffett and all his buddies created. He's friends with all those guys on Wall Street, all the big bankers, all the ones that perpetrated frauds with their CDOs and all their other mortgage-backed securities and other, derivatives that were all fraudulent. And Warren Buffett himself had said, derivatives were a weapon of mass financial destruction. He turned out to be right. It destroyed everything as he still was helping out Goldman Sachs, loaning them $5 billion. He was still part of this whole system. And as a response to that fraud, the central banks had to come in and bail them all out, including Warren Buffett. So I want to turn to another part of his charlatan-like qualities of Warren Buffett that Bitcoin has exposed. Remember, this is why they're so angry about Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin has exposed those two as charlatans and all of their friends on Wall Street. This is from Nomi Prinz. This is what real collusion looks like. When one central bank, the Fed, reduces QE, another accelerates, maintaining the average rate of developed countries at 0% and the tide of asset purchases rising. Here is the chart. Of course, the red line is the U.S. Fed, the blue line is the ECB, and the green line is the Bank of Japan. Max, you had said this, you suggested this long ago, that whenever the Fed stops or slows down with QE, the ECB picks up and vice versa. And this data that Nomi Prinz linked to suggests this is true.
And a lot of people pointed this out. Peter Schiff, Jim Rickards, people that we've had on the show, Nomi Prinz, that the net global increase in money printing has never decreased because you can't taper a Ponzi scheme. So people say to me, the Fed's raising rates. I thought you said you can't taper a Ponzi scheme. You can't. That's why globally money's being printed.
Most people who write those comments in the YouTube section, most people live in a small little local area. So they can only go access their local banks. They don't understand that, the Warren Buffetts of the world and their friends can access free cash anywhere in the world, and they get to game the system because they're part of the global elite. Like you, an ordinary Joe bag of donuts on the street, can't access 0% rates from the ECB.
Look, the point you make there is that Bitcoin is a reaction to Warren Buffett and his crony capitalists and the bailouts of 2008. So they don't want to admit that. They don't even examine that. They don't want to come down off their pedestal of crony capitalism and free money from central banks to address that. So they attack crypto as a way, it's a rearguard action. They're trying to attack crypto as much as they can to prevent the torches and the rioters and the pitchforks from going down there to Omaha and taking revenge on these guys.
But another thing is these two do not like competition. They've existed in a world where they get to play their little banjo and pretend that they're sweet guys, and they've become multi-billionaires just because, almost trillionaires, because they're so sweet and just like sweet guys, and they've competed their way to the top. But the system of this collusion from the central banks and the New York Fed and all these regulators that help them out and they help each other, the system is rigged. In Bitcoin, it's everybody, is on an equal playing field. You've got to compete. There's nobody to rig the game for you, and I think that's, part of their legacy is a reaction. Bitcoin is a reaction to Warren Buffett, to Charlie Munger.
Well, Charlie Munger will have the pleasure of watching Bitcoin soar past $30,000 per coin as he expires from this planet. So, Charlie?
I want to say, by the way, we actually had dinner once with his son and Matthew Mellon.
And Matthew Mellon at the Carlisle.
Yeah.
Carlisle, we saw not Bobby Short, but Bobby Short's successor.
Really? I don't know who Bobby Short is.
Yeah, he's a horn dogger.
Okay. Well, this is the...
We got to go to the second half. Much more coming your way. Not Bobby Short, the son of Charlie Munger, is who I refer to. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to go to Boulder, Colorado. Speak with Michael Krieger of LibertyBlitzkrieg.com. Michael Krieger, welcome back.
Hey, Max. Great to be back.
Hey, I'm looking at this Blitzkrieg. What's it called? Blitzkrieg.
Links?
Blitzkrieg. LibertyBlitzkrieg.com. Wasn't there a Ramones song called Blitzkrieg Bop?
I think there might have been. Yeah. Should that be my theme song?
Did that inspire you? Maybe?
No, I just was looking for a somewhat clever play on my last name, so I went with it. Because I don't know if you know this, but Krieger actually translates directly into warrior in German.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I asked that question. I get to the bottom of that. Okay, well, let's get into your series that you've written. A very interesting series, very provocative and thought-provoking. It's called The Road to 2025. And you conclude the series by saying that the very bright future could be within our reach if we demand it. How so?
Sure. So what I talk about in that last piece is how the United States was originally intended to be a revolutionary project in political decentralization. And, as you know, decentralization is sort of this buzzword now, but it's really important. And just as a sort of quick history lesson, as you know, at the federal level, we're supposed to have a separation of powers into three branches: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And then even beyond that, the founding fathers further decentralized power by giving tremendous rights to the states themselves in the 10th Amendment. And so what I really want to get the message across to my fellow Americans and people around the world is that we've strayed so far from the original intent. The founding fathers were obsessed with making sure power was decentralized so that nobody could get control and act imperial. And you know what? A couple of centuries later, we've turned into everything that the founding fathers were trying to avoid. We're a global empire more focused on managing the world and stealing resources than we are making our infrastructure better, taking care of our own people, having a dynamic, productive economy at home. So my basic point is this. Yes, the U.S. empire is going to lose clout overseas over the next, let's say, 7 years. But this doesn't have to be a bad thing, because we've strayed so far away from what this political decentralization model that we had to begin with. We could go back to it. We could start restoring more power at the local level and more individual sovereignty. And so that's where I see this heading. And I think we just need to embrace it to have a much better future and more free future.
Right. So you're positing that a decentralized version of America, we can return to that, and this would be a restoring of the founders' original intent. Of course, Colorado, it seems like they're way ahead of the curve. You know, you've got a lot of people growing their own vegetables and things, and they've got localism is big there. It has been, always has been. So can that be ported over to other states? Because some states are fiercely, they seem to be in the opposite camp. I mean, maybe like a Texas or something. What do you think?
Here's the key thing. Yes, it's true. A lot of people still across the country seem to get their sort of satisfaction from, attaching themselves to Washington, D.C. and our military might and thinking that gives them some sort of power in their own lives. But as the U.S. empire starts to lose influence abroad, and as the dollar starts to have less influence as well, we're going to be forced to go local. So I think some of us will go kicking and screaming, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a good thing for everybody, because it's having a more tight local community is a great thing. And let me tell you, I'm not a big fan of taxes, but I don't mind paying taxes in Boulder, because you know what? I walk around and I see really nice projects, and it's a very well taken care of place. And I feel like my tax dollars are going to good things. Whereas on the flip side, I hate paying any taxes to the federal government, because I know there's just going to be spent on bombs and killing people. So it's a big difference.
Right now, of course, the U.S. corporate media sees a multipolar world as a grave threat to the U.S., but is it really? Because Europeans ran empires before America did, and now post-empire, the ordinary citizen there has a much better standard of living than the average American. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, this is half of my series is talking about how the U.S. empire is not benefiting the average person anymore. As you can see with the wealth inequality in this country, and since this quote-unquote recovery in 2009, all of the gains have gone to a smaller and smaller class of people. And as you've also seen with data as far as wealth in the country, like some of the wealthiest counties, half of them are clustered around Washington, D.C. Think about that, an area of the country that basically produces nothing other than, think tanks that justify killing people. So it's a very parasitic model, but this is what you'd expect in an empire. In the late stages of empire, you're funneling all the money to all these parasites in the capital, and the regions are struggling. So yeah, I mean, my view is that the U.S. empire as it is today is not good for the average American, and therefore we shouldn't fear it at all, because it's time to focus on ourselves back home, as opposed to micromanaging the entire planet.
Right. So getting back to states initiatives, I see one of your nearby states, Wyoming, has become very constructive in the blockchain space and Bitcoin space. Could that be something that sweeps the nation state by state as potential for revenues and new jobs and innovation are realized? If it goes over well in Wyoming, could you see that spreading to other states, Michael?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, as you probably discussed before, like Malta is making a big push to sort of encourage a lot of the global talent in the crypto world to come to Malta. and set up shop there. And yes, Wyoming's taking the lead on that. It's interesting how it tends to be these, states that, that state's so associated with the Cheneys. But interesting things can still happen at the grassroots level there. And yes, I am one of the things I wrote about in the series is how I think the interesting thing is when the U.S. dollar loses its reserve status or dominance, let's say, that it has today, we have free market currencies now. And so it's not just nation states versus nation states in a currency wars. We're also going to have nation states versus free market currencies. But these free market currencies are here to stay. And yes, I agree. I think states or regions, countries that are opportunistic and jump at the opportunity will get the smartest talent in the world flowing to their shores.
All right, so let's talk geopolitical global stage. And on this theme of U.S. dollar maybe losing world reserve currency, U.S. empire possibly fading, you've got some really interesting things happening in North Korea, South Korea, China, and Russia. So in other words, you've got North Korea and South Korea talking, possibly going to make a move toward ending all hostilities there. China's a big power broker. Trump's a big power broker. And they might host a peace summit between the Koreas and the U.S. in Russia. So does this play into your theme, Michael?
So North Korea, look, I mean, the images of the shaking hands, crossing the borders was one of the most heartwarming geopolitical images I can remember seeing. So it's a great thing. I hope that there is peace. I will say this, though. Before we get all excited regarding the state of geopolitics around the world, I haven't written a single post, and I write a lot of posts on geopolitics. I haven't written one single post ever about North Korea and how I'm concerned about it, because I just wasn't concerned about it. And as you know, Max, because you've been talking about it forever, the key to the U.S. Imperial dominance around the world is the petrodollar. Okay. And oil is the key to the petrodollar. So to me, Korea was never, as much as Trump was belligerent in his tweets about it, it was never to me the crown jewel for the U.S. empire. I still think that's Iran. And I believe with the addition of Bolton and Pompeo to high positions in U.S. diplomacy and intelligence, that there's going to be some serious fireworks in the Middle East, because again, that's where the key to maintaining U.S. imperial powers, not in North Korea. There's no giant oil reserves there, but it's in the Middle East. So while it's great what's going on in Korea, and I hope it continues, the Middle East is where I've always been worried and continue to be worried.
Okay, fair enough. Let's segue into Iran and the Middle East. So you believe that the bringing on board of Michael Bolton and Pompeo is setting the stage for a more military posturing in that area, Michael?
Yeah, so since Trump was elected, you could tell he was going to totally go against all of his campaign promises based on who he hired to be around him, all these banksters. Same with Trump. You have to watch at who he hires. And so John Bolton and Mike Pompeo are two of the most lunatic neoconservative types you could possibly pick. And so that's a sign that something is definitely afoot with Iran. And, May 12th is when Trump's going to make a decision on this Iran deal. And now Netanyahu is saying that he's got evidence he's going to show tonight. This is the guy that in 2002, Netanyahu predicted that if we got rid of Saddam Hussein, there would be huge positive reverberations throughout the Middle East. That's the same guy we're going to listen to on Iran. So, yeah, it's disturbing, but, we'll see how it shakes out.
Right. Just to make a correction there, I once again referred to John Bolton as Michael Bolton. Of course, everyone knows one's got a mustache and the other one's a neocon. No, I got it mixed up. Anyway, there's two different guys there. So, yeah, I mean, but this Middle East pressure cooker's been building up for decades, and the prognosis there is quite terrifying, but my view is that potentially Trump could be pulling out of U.S. military in South Korea as part of a global kind of retrenchment of the Pentagon, and a lot of the posturing going on in the Middle East could also be a prelude to a de-escalation of military spending, because he's not a guy who likes to waste money. Even though he's been bankrupt a few times, he knows why waste money.
I mean, I think those are valid points. However, I think Trump's inherent antagonism towards Iran is very personal and very real. Not just that, there's the Jared Kushner influence. There's the fact that where did Trump go on his first official state visit? Saudi Arabia. Where did Mike Pompeo just go on his first visit? Saudi Arabia. So this, to me, this is a much bigger thing. And no, I think that Trump legitimately, and for a variety of personal reasons as well, feels as if Iran needs to be essentially taken out or neutered in the Middle East, because for the United States and the establishment, essentially, they realize that if total control of the Middle East isn't continued, that threatens the unipolar world, which it does.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Excellent point to leave on, Michael Krieger. Thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Sure. Thanks, Max.